Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Well, check out Deal to Heal Teas. With our inspirational teas, you're sure to find something that will inspire you. Just go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. That's Deal to Heal Teas. Get some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. That's Deal to Heal Teas at dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Hey guys, this is Earnest James, host of the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, and I got a question to ask you. Could you buy me a cheeseburger? Better yet, could you buy me a value meal? Yes? Well, guess what? I don't need a value meal. However, for the cost of a value meal, you can support this podcast to keep us on the air. Just go to Patreon/Deal to Heal podcast and choose any one of the 3 tiers that's available. And if you just want to make a one-time donation, go to Cash App and make a donation to $EJames, the number 418. Make a one-time donation to the Cash App, or again, go to Patreon to support this podcast and keep us on the air. Thanks in advance. Be blessed. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I'm your host Earnest James, and I believe that everyone can live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. To deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. So thank you guys again for tuning in once again with us on the podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe, like, and share on your various platforms. Definitely on YouTube. We want to get them YouTube numbers up on Spotify or your listening platform. We're also on IG. We're on Facebook. We're on TikTok. Wherever you want to find us, we're there. We're trying to be there. So make sure you like and subscribe and definitely share with someone else if you're getting some value out of this podcast. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. And today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest, Miss Danielle. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm blessed. How are you? I'm happy to be here.
I am well. First of all, let me say thank you for being here, because I know you could be doing anything else, but you took our time to talk with me and my listeners, and we definitely appreciate it. So thank you for being here. So we're gonna jump right in. So the first thing I would like you to do is tell us who you are and what it is that you do.
Oh, I am Reshae Danielle. I am an author. I have my first book coming out in September, well, the middle of September somewhat. It is called The Grass Ain't Greener. I am a serial entrepreneur. I have about 3 businesses, and I have 3 loving kids. So that's about it.
All right. So, Ms. Danielle, I know that we are. I came across you on. I came across your book, the title of your book, and I think it was like a clip or something on Facebook, which brought us here, which is the reason why you're here, talking about your story. So, if you can just give us a little bit of a background or introduction of your story, so that we get an idea of what the book is about and just who you are, as a person.
Absolutely. My book is based upon the grass is not greener being told one thing, but then getting into a new relationship or friendship, and it's an opposite. The book is based upon me being young, married, and divorced young. So it's the growing pains, the healing with my kids, myself, and where I am today is basically what the book is about. I came
Okay.
upon writing the book basically like years ago. I think I started in 2017. Then I stopped because I was like, no one want to hear my story. Everybody else, they've been told this, but it's just that something just kept pulling at me this year to go ahead and get started. So that is why I'm here today.
All right, all right. So basically, the book is kind of your journey into your marriage, and you being young and things of that nature. So the first question I want to ask you, um, is what was your family dynamic growing up, in your household? Because a lot of times we find that we repeat what we see, so if we are in a family that, maybe your parents married young, then maybe you may marry young. If you're in a household where, your parents, had children young, you may have children young. If you're in a household where your parents are separate, and so doing the single parents, mother or father, either way, that plays a part in how we look at relationships and how we go into relationships. So just even before we get into talking about your marriage, what was your family dynamic, growing up, personally?
My family, I come from a big family. My mom and dad have been married for 37 years. I'm
All
37
right,
years old.
all right.
So they did marry young. My mom had started having kids young, so that was, may played a part in it. I like they're still married. All of us are grown, have families, so I don't think that played a part in it. Um,
Mm.
Me being married young, I got married at 22 and we got divorced at I was 25. So I just like jumped into something. I did love my husband. We were truly in love, but I did not know what entails in a marriage. My mom and my dad was the breadwinner. He worked. My mom was a stay-at-home mom until we all got of age. So I did not know like the finances or the dynamics of being married. Growing up, my parents, they did shelter us from a lot of things as far as family wise. I'm from the country, I'm from Mississippi. So we all just grew up and went outside and played. So there was never a time where we was listening to our parents like discuss finances, or we was listening to our parents and discussing problems in a marriage or anything like that. Don't get me wrong, where there were arguments, but it wasn't like kids today where they're like
Mhm.
right there on their phone or on their tablets. We was outside if things were going like that. So that was, my family part.
Okay, okay, cool, cool. So it didn't really have an effect in that sense of it.
Right.
Definitely, I know I can understand. My parents were married until my mom passed away a couple years ago. Um, and it was nine of us, big family. I consider it a big family.
Yes.
I know some people that got more, but
Right.
but it was nine of us, and definitely a big thing. And so I know you were young,
Hmm.
going there, and you say you just kind of jumped into it. Um, what do you think was the reason what made you want to get or even consider marriage at such a young age? Because I think that, definitely in our 20s, at least until we like 25, we
Hmm.
don't really know ourselves. We're still, because you're coming out of high school about 19, 19, 20,
Correct.
depending on, where your birthday falls. And so that new freedom,
Hmm.
the new responsibility of being responsible for yourself. And, like I said, probably until you're like maybe 25, you're really just kind of figuring out yourself,
Yes.
So what do you think made you even consider marriage at that time being so young?
We was in love. I was with him when I was 18 years old. Um, we moved in like right away. I think I turned 19 because I was 17 when I graduated. So that I was young, rolling, coming out the door. I was really young.
Right.
So, you fall in love and then you want to move out your parents' house because you want to be grown. That was me. I had a daughter, my oldest daughter. She's 18 now, and she actually just graduated a couple of weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, to me. Look, that's what I tell. That's mine. So that was that. We was in love and young, and we wanted to be a family, and we thought we could do it. But just like you were stating, in that state of mind, you really don't know yourself. And I hear people saying that all the time, like now in today's age where love doesn't have an age. It doesn't, but mentally, you're I don't think you'll be ready for marriage at 20, 21, 22 because you don't know yourself. Like me, 37 now is not 22-year-old Reshae.
Right.
Those
Right.
are two totally different people,
Right.
so that plays a big part in our divorce. And that is another reason for the book also because me, I didn't grow. I grew up after the divorce. Like it was a snowball effect. High school, relationship, marriage, kids, relationship, marriage, then divorce. And it was like I didn't know where I was. I had went through so much in such a short period of time to where, it was like 32, 33 to where I was like, girl, you got to, get it together. So that is when I started writing the book.
Right. Right. And so that brings up something else that you just said, if I'm not mistaken, you had a child before the relationship,
Yes,
right?
I
And so would that child be have a different father than the
yes,
husband?
yes,
So that brings in a whole nother dynamic that you
yes,
definitely was young for, talking about, a different father figure than the actual, your husband coming in, being a father,
right,
to a child, stepchild. I don't really like to use the term
exactly.
stepchildren. I myself have four stepsons, if you want to say it that way. One
Right.
biological child, which is my daughter, who also just graduated a year or so ago. She made 19 this year. So,
Yes,
still tell
congratulations.
her, thank
Yeah.
you, thank you. So that's a whole nother dynamic,
And it
that you're coming in. And definitely at that age, 20, what you said, 21 coming in as a just from my experience. Because
yes.
when I came into my stepson's lives, I think I was 36 at the time.
Oh well,
So, and then it was a process at that age with my maturity level at 36. So I can
right.
imagine trying to negotiate that and work you guys way through that at such a young age.
Yes, but just I was so blessed. Like my ex-husband, we're still really close. For her graduation, it was her dad, her biological dad, her stepdad, and my fiance now was all there. They all play a big part of her life right now. And he actually, my ex-husband was with her when she was like 1 years old. So he grew up as her dad. That was her dad.
Mhm.
Her dad didn't live in this state anymore. So she was totally hooked on him. That was his first child, was her. And he still says, today through graduation that, he didn't birth her. That's not her blood, but that she is, her daughter. So I was blessed of that. Like they went through all the changes together as far as
Mhm.
getting to know each other. She was a baby, so that's who she called dad at the time, and she still calls him dad. So I totally understand that part of growing up. And now it's a lot of step parents out there where, even a child could be 1 or 5. The the dynamics of the step parent era is like so hard right now. I could not imagine going through that in the early stages or in older kids of right now. So that I was just completely blessed. We have my ex-husband, we have one child together, also biologically, and that's my son. He's 13 years old right now. So I, I I'm completely blessed on that end.
Definitely, definitely, and I'm glad you mentioned that because that was another thing that I was going to bring up because is not often heard of, and definitely with my story myself, it I was came into the same situation as far as, the relationship with my daughter was 7 when I remarried. I divorced from her mom and then remarried. My wife at the time had 4 sons, and then I
Mhm.
had my daughter. So that was a whole, thing for all of us to come into
Exactly.
that. And later we divorced. But what I like what you said, because which is our situation now. We're such good friends.
Right.
Me and the mom, and my daughter still calls her mom. My
Mhm.
daughter still, probably calls her more than she calls me. You know what I
It's,
mean? And I appreciate that, and I definitely let her know. And I've said on the podcast a lots of times that
yes.
I'm very appreciative of their relationship,
Mhm.
because there's some conversations that my daughter won't have with me,
Exactly.
just because she's daddy's little girl, so there are some things she's not even going to talk to me about, but she
Right.
will call her stepmom, and they will have those conversations because of the relationship that they have.
Exactly.
And so I'm definitely blessed for that, and I love, like you said, with all you guys at the graduation, and
Yeah.
definitely all the men who played a major part in her life, all to be
Yeah.
mature enough to be in the same place, in the same room, and recognize each other's contribution to your daughter's life. And like
That's
you said, with the step parent pool, nowadays, and I think they kind of make it harder than it has to be. I think a lot of people just
yes.
misunderstood, misinformed. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like, it doesn't have to be that. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? You can't. It starts with you, and it's how you build it and how you work at it. And I'm glad that you guys were able, like I said, to come together and them men to recognize the part that they
Yes.
played in their daughter's life.
Yes, and like I said, that is a blessing. And even my ex-husband, he's remarried, and his wife and I, we're on the same page. Even with my son, we was out the other day. He was like, "Mom, may I have his ex-wife is Janine? May I have Miss Janine number so I can text her something?" And I was like, "Okay," or I text her if I need something from her. It doesn't have to be as hard as people make it. As long as the communication is correct, then on all ends, all parties, it could be amazing, not only for you, the parent, but also as for the child, because you have to put yourself aside and do everything that's possible for that child.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing. And coming into a relationship, as a step parent, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? You have to realize that it's a package deal. If
Exactly.
you're coming into the life of this person who you growing to care about and learning, but also you have to learn that child. And you have to have just as much love and care for that child as you do as has have for the person that you are in the relationship with, because they're a extension of
Yes.
that person. And so if you come into it like that you're building two relationships, at the same time, basically, with two people that you should care for, two people that you should love, being
Right.
that spouse, and then the spouse's child. And I think that when we look at it that way and recognize it that way, and also treat that child how you want your child to be treated,
Exactly.
it will work out fine.
Exactly.
And I'm glad for you guys that you were
Yes.
able to work that out.
Yes.
So let's go back a little bit. So we're in this new marriage, and we're young.
Yes. Very.
We're coming into this new marriage, and we're young. We're trying to figure it out. And so here's a question. So was there anyone that you guys could go to at that time, to find out how this thing is supposed to go? Because like you said, and even in my situation, although I seen what a healthy marriage looked like from my
Right.
parents, I wasn't taught how to develop that. I
Yeah.
wasn't taught how to build that. I seen what it looked like,
Right.
but that's like looking at a picture on the wall, say, wow, that's a beautiful picture or a painting, but they don't mean you know how to paint it. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So
Right.
was there
Right.
anyone at that time that you guys could actually go to and have those conversations? Like, okay, what are we supposed to be doing here? How do we make this thing work?
Yes, absolutely. My parents, my sisters, because my oldest sister, she's been married for 18 years now, so she had been married a while. Even my pastor, but me being that young, I did not want to. I didn't have the mindset to go get help. Only thing I had the mindset was to do was this what I wanted to do, and if you don't like it, then that's your problem. That was me. I'm gonna do what I like. A rebellious teen. I was like a rebellious wife. If I wanted to go out with my friends, I was going out with my friends, whether you liked it or not. But that was just the immaturity of that moment, So like now, I wouldn't dare do that because you have to think about your life and yourself and put yourself in those shoes. Even though I do have personal time with my friends, but it's also family time. I wanted to go out every not every weekend, but a lot. I wanted to hang with my friend girls after work. I didn't want to go home and cook and be a mom and be a wife and listen to all this other stuff. I wanted to do me. So yes, we had people we can go talk to and listen to, but I just didn't want to. I didn't want to do it.
So okay, so and making that transition or developing that transition from who you were then to
Hmm.
who you are now, what would be some of the lessons that you think that you learned that help you to develop into who you are? Because I know you mentioned about, first of all, the desire, right? Because you have to want to have the desire to want to be a better whatever, a better wife, a better mother, a better whatever. You got to
Exactly.
have the desire first,
Yes.
But then once you have the desire, what would be some of those lessons that you may have learned along the way to now you're married again, you're remarried and happily married, I'm assuming. And
Yes.
now you're, it's like, okay, I got this thing together, especially to the point I can write a book about it. You know what I'm saying?
Somewhat.
So
Somewhat.
what is that transition like? What does that transition look like? And what were some of the lessons that you learned as a woman now, as a married woman now, and looking back on the married woman that you were? It was like, okay, that was wrong. This is how I corrected it. This is what we at now.
Yes. Compromising, prayer, understanding, knowledge of the two. It's not just about one person, it's two. And my number one thing is knowing who you are. Because if you get into a relationship and it's all about one person, then you will be drowned in that person's shadow. Like you wouldn't be standing out. This is a team. This is a power couple. This is two people and not one. So those are my main things that I say to anyone that asks those questions. And the number one is knowing who you are. I did not know who I was back then. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. I didn't know how to be a wife. I didn't know how to be well, I barely know how to be a mother. We only had one child at the time, and at the end of the marriage, we had my son. And then when we divorced, I still was not into being a mother, even though I had two kids. I was still into that same mindset until I just woke up and was like, Reshae, you got to do something with your life. So if you're going into a marriage or even a relationship and you don't have yourself together, if you don't write down your goals or think about what you want to do, not this facade on social media, of what you can be, because that's all it is. That social media, puts up. But if you don't know who you are and who you want to be, then it's not going to work. Nothing is going to work. Jobs, relationship, being an entrepreneur, nothing is going to work.
Yeah, and I think that plays a very huge part of it. So I want to dive into that a little bit more, if you don't mind. That knowing, becoming, understanding who you are.
Hmm.
And again, we talked about, first of all, it takes the desire to want to change. So what was the thing that gave you that desire? I mean, I know you said one day you just woke up with, but I'm sure it was a process of things before that day. You know what I'm saying? So what do you think probably was the main thing that made you just, wake up that day and be like, you know what? this ain't working. You know what I mean? It's like this is not even who I want to be. You know
Exactly.
what I mean?
Me, being a black woman, I really kind of went through a depression stage after the divorce and after the kids. It was like years after. I think it kind of snowballed into an effect, and I was just I used to write. Well, I still write because I have like thousands of notebooks, and I write down a lot of things. And something just, and it really did just like snapped and was like, you have to get up from here. And it's really my kids because I look at it like you have to put on like your big girl. I say big girl panties. You have to put on your big girl panties and be there for your kids. Your kids are the people that's watching you. And now my daughter's 18, my oldest daughter's 18. I don't want her to look back and be like, oh, mom didn't do anything or she didn't succeed in life or anything of that nature. You know, I want them to be happy. When I'm looking at them, a parent, they knows when their child is genuinely happy and they see you happy. If they see you down and out and depressed, then it reflects off them. So I had to do better and be a better me for my kids. Um, that's the number one thing.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned about the depression. So, and I'm glad you mentioned it because I like to make sure, and especially when we're dealing with things like depression and suicide and things like that, I like when the regular people acknowledge it, right?
Right.
Because it allows us to know that we're not crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And so I often share my own story of depression and even having suicidal thoughts after my first divorce from my daughter's mom. You know,
Hmm.
going through that time period, it was a couple things I was dealing with at that time. Of course, the divorce, debt. You know, I had some depression, and then my mom passed away.
Hmm.
And also, even before that, um, my daughter's mom, her mom passed away, and I was very close to her mom. We had our
Right.
own relationship. You know, she was my mother-in-law, but we had our own relationship and we were real close. So when she passed away, that already affected me. And
Hmm.
then going through the divorce and then going, you know, the debt and things that go along with divorce. And then my mom also passing away. So that left me in a big depression state and which I also contemplated suicide at that time because I was just under so much pressure. And
Right.
again, it was that thing like, okay, finding something to live for, and that was my daughter. Is what I came to, you know, begin to wake up because going thinking about my daughter and the lives that she had already lost, the loved ones she had already lost, you
Hmm.
know, and my daughter was my shadow. Like everywhere I go, she was with me. So she was like
Right.
this little girl, you know, and I'm like, what is going to happen to her if I'm not here? You know,
Exactly.
and so that was one of the things that, you know, woke me up like, no, I, if nothing else, I got to stay here to make sure she's okay.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that kind of gave me the beginning. It wasn't enough to bring me all the way out of it. You know,
Right.
it definitely took some prayer and some help from some, you know, people that loved me and cared about me to nurture me and help bring me out of it. You know, out of that process. But again, that's why I like to talk about it
Yes.
because number one, we as a community don't talk about it enough. You
Oh.
know, and now it's becoming more of a topic, but I don't want it to be just a social topic of the time. You know,
Right.
where it's a phase like, oh, everybody talk about mental health now, and everybody talk about depression and whatever, and then they go away, and then now we have another generation, especially the generation that's coming after us, because our children are dealing with depression and stuff on a
Yes.
whole nother level than
Complete.
we've had to deal with it, you
Yes.
know. And so I like to make sure that I talk openly about my experience with it, and
Yes.
I definitely like when my guests, you know, talk about it a little bit.
I am completely with you. Even as you stating with the generation now, I always ask them, are they okay? What are your friends talking about? What are you talking about with your friends? Even if you don't want to tell me, I'm going to still listen to your conversations, even if it's over the phone. My son is a gamer. Even if it's on the game, whatever he's watching. My youngest is 8. She's a mommy's girl, so she really don't have any friends. But my oldest two, I try to stay a close eye on them because their depression is like a sinkhole. they're not talking, so they're slowly, going into it faster
Mhm.
than us. Even though we're not talking, we're still moving, we're still going through our day to day, dealing with everything as well as dealing with what you have going on inside of you. So I try to stay on minds all the time with what is their mental health. In today's society, they are like painting a picture of depression or painting a picture of mental health, and it's so not real. That's why you stated like real people. Yes, I am a real woman that deals with it, and it's not easy. It's nothing that you can just snap your fingers and come out of it. Even though I've I've been out of it, I still have good days and I have bad days. Even
Mhm.
though this is a process, it is a healing journey.
Yeah, and I know is big with our children. I actually did a recording, a podcast recording when I had my daughter on. I actually interviewed
Oh,
my daughter, and we sat down and we had some conversation. And I allowed her or I asked her to ask me some questions or whatever. And one of the questions that she brought up was depression, dealing with depression. And after that, my oldest son lives in another state, and he happened to come, to visit with his daughter. And I picked him up from the airport. And
hmm.
in our conversation, and me talking to him, asking, how you doing? How's married life treating you? Because he's in his 20s, So I'm like, I know it's not easy. You're in your 20s, you're married, and you got a daughter. So I'm asking him, how he's doing and checking on him, and he began to, also confide in me about, some battling with depression. And so, I made it a mission to constantly, send them, send them things and books and,
Hmm.
videos or just things to constantly feed their minds so they're not falling,
Exactly.
deeper into this, but they're actually pulling out, and also having them conversations with them, to help them do better. Um, but yeah, so I like I said, I appreciate it when you mentioned it because it is something that everyday people like us, we deal with.
Yes.
And definitely, like I said, I definitely like to talk about it in our community because we don't talk about it,
And
and as well as other things. Again, when I mentioned about when my mom passed away and my mother-in-law at the time passed away, I started to take in bereavement. I joined the
right.
bereavement group,
Yeah.
and out of the time I was there as a participant, and then I became a volunteer, and I
Mhm.
was doing the meetings with them. Outside of myself, it probably was only, I would say two at the most, but definitely one, black family to come through there. And I'm like, I know we're dealing with it. I know
Exactly.
what's happening, but we're not seeking out the help, that
Exactly.
we need. And so I even started a nonprofit after that, named after my mother-in-law and my mom, called and Christine Charities, in which we started doing bereavement sessions in our community, to bring the bereavement to them,
Oh,
So we started doing that, and so I just know, again, like I said, I'm glad you mentioned it because I want it to be the norm. I don't want
right.
it to be a taboo, conversation, whatever it is that we're dealing with. That's
Right.
the whole platform is to, find healing in every area of our life. And I know that's an area that we're all dealing with.
Is in some type of way, and as you say, it's a taboo, or it may be a, as they say, a trend. This is not a trend. This is something that people go through every day. I mean, from the smallest child to the oldest person in your family, there's someone that is going through this.
Right, right. Yeah. So again, thank you for mentioning that, and we went on a whole nother thing. So let's go back. Let's go back. So you're married. How long were you married?
Who's only married for 2 years?
2 years. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So you're only married for 2 years. So I'm sure, even though uh it was only 2 years, and I know during that period, no, I think you said your awakening, should I say, didn't come to after the marriage.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So what was his mindset during this time period?
The after or during the divorce?
We're during the marriage
Oh,
before, coming
he
up against
was
the
he
divorce.
was still holding on to the marriage. He wanted to stay married. He wanted us to work through it, you know. But I tell anyone, even if I were to do it over again, I still would not be married to him. He's a great friend. He's a great person. He's a great father. But I still would not be married to him. So he was still holding on to it until the divorce, and then he just let it go. But yeah, we would not still be married. Some people are just not meant to be. We went through a relationship, like I said, I was 18. Then after that, 24, 25, we got divorced. We had a great, I said we had a great go at it, but it just didn't work.
Yeah, yeah, and I know a lot of it have to do with, again, the mature level and
Yeah. And he's
getting
older
to
than me,
that point.
older than me also. So
Okay,
when
so he
uh,
probably was already there
he
mentally,
was,
long time before you even came along. So he been ready, right?
yes, he was older than me, so he been through that. He went through the club
Mhm.
part, he went through the party and hang with the homeboys. He did
Right.
all that. So he was ready. He was in the settle down mood, and I was just getting started. So
Okay, right. All right, right. Yeah. Well, I can understand that because I remember years ago when I got out of high school, I always was years ahead of my circle, right? So
right,
my mind was already there. Again, I had my mom and my dad, I had that picture already painted that I grew up with.
right.
So my mind was already there, like, okay, that's what I want,
Hmm.
even at a young age. So um I was dating a young lady after I graduated. I was out of high school. She was still in like her last year of high school, and we dated for a few years. And even coming out of that, we talked about marriage, and she wanted to get married right away. But again, I knew that phase. Right. And I'm
Right.
like, nah,
Let's
you gotta
wait.
have time to do all whatever you're gonna do, because what I don't want is to be married and then you start going through that phase,
Yes.
or to be married and you might not go through that phase, but now you have resentment because
You
you
re-
didn't get to do it.
exactly.
And
Ex-
so I already knew what that looked like.
Exactly.
I was like, nah, we can't do it. We gotta, take some time, and everything. And we, of course, we didn't end up getting married. Still good friends today, but
Right.
again, like I said, that age, and it just,
Yes.
it was what it was. But I definitely understand that when one person have that mindset and then
Right.
the other person, still has to go through that phase. I never went through the phase because I never wanted to.
Right.
It didn't interest me because I already had this picture of family and everything that I had in my mind, and that's what I wanted. So all the rest of that was like, it wasn't a big deal to me. So I didn't necessarily have that in my relationships, going forward. But I definitely understand it
Exactly.
in the person on the other side of it.
Yes.
So before we get out of here, before we wrap it up, I want to talk a little bit more about your book and what would be, um, if you could give me, let's just say two. Let's just say two lessons that that there's a young girl that picks up your book and she started reading it, or even matter of fact, let's take it back as you now talking to your younger self. You know what I'm saying? Saying, okay, listen, before you do this,
Hmm.
here's two things. Give me two. Give us two things that your younger self, if you gave your younger self your book, that you at that age could take away from and be able to get to or begin to that process of becoming the woman that you are now, from that young teenager that you were then.
Okay. So number one would absolutely have to be plan your life out.
Mhm.
If it's just a short time goal, a long 3, 5 years, plan your life out. It may not work, but you can always put things on paper and go back to it. I know people have notes in their phone. Nothing is like putting things on paper.
Right.
When you write things down, to me it tends to already like go in the atmosphere. When you put it in your phone, it doesn't feel the same. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that is number one, plan your life out. Number two, be in a relationship for yourself. Be and I say be in a relationship for yourself is because sometimes you get in a relationship for the other person. You know, you love that person, you want to be with them, but it's still something about them that, you know, you just can't put your finger on it. Like, this is not going to work. Like, this is not going to work. But you're still in it because you see that person loves you and they want to be with you. No, no, ma'am, no, sir. Be in that relationship for yourself. If you feel like this is the way you want to go, this is the love of your life, this is the everything, then go ahead. But if it's just that one thing that you know you can't shake, then write it down, question it, you know, seek and find and see if you can work it out. But if you cannot, then just end it. You don't want to keep dragging on a relationship for years and years and years and it's not going to work. That's wasted time. So just be in a relationship for yourself. And then once you know you for yourself, then that'll make a better relationship.
All right, all right. Couldn't have said it no better, Miss Danielle. Thank
Thank
you so much for being on. Thank you so much for being the guest. I'm going to let you have the last word. Tell our listeners, first of all, tell us where or when we can get this book, right? And then let us know where we can find you at to follow you, your social media handles and things like that. And if you have anything else going on, let us know where we can support it.
Yes, you can get the book September. It comes out. It will be in my on my website. It'll be on Amazon also because that's where I'm going to publish it through Amazon because it is so much better. My social media handles is all under my link tree, so you can go www.linktree/ReshaeDanielle. All my social media handles there, my website where you can get the book and some of my merchants as well as what I have upcoming. I do have, let me see. I had a magazine cover come out today, and I am so happy about that. You, my mama, let me find it. Look, okay, it is. I'm gonna have to put in my link tree, so just go to my link tree and get that.
Definitely,
But
definitely.
I did have a magazine article come out today regarding my book and the lifestyle that I've lived. So I am so happy, and I thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
No problem, no problem. Thank you for being a guest. Thank you for being here. What is the magazine
Um,
that you're on?
look, I can't even see it right now, so I'm gonna have to send it to you
Okay,
later.
it's all right. It's all right, cool. But just make sure you send me all of that information. I'll make sure all those links and everything be
Yes,
on the description of this when we post it. Again, thank you so very much for taking out the time to share your story and
thank you.
to enlighten our listeners with your story. Again, this is the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Earnest James, and I believe that everyone can live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And our mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problems, heal from your pain, and fulfill your purpose. Until next time, thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next week.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Bye bye.
Hey guys, I know you're enjoying the podcast. However, don't forget to join our text line at 866 326 0730. That's 866 326 0730 in order to receive text messages with new events and things that is going on and new episodes as they release. All right, see you in a minute. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.